Well, Griff, we're less than 3 weeks away from the Iowa caucus as things continue to heat up in some of the candidates' campaigns. For more on this, we're joined by our political panel with GOP strategist Jeff Crouere and former Obama campaign foreign policy advisor David Tafuri. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. I want to get started right with this issue of Trump's name being removed from the ballot in Maine and Colorado. Most legal scholars believe the Supreme Court will strike this down. Does this then backfire on Democrats by bolstering the former president's campaign? Let me ask Jeff to you first.
Anita, I think definitely it does. I mean, Democrats are desperate to not face Donald Trump. They've done everything since the day he came down the escalator to try to stop him. And this is just the latest outrageous move. I mean, it's taking the voice away from the people and putting it in the hands of some judges or a partisan Secretary of State. I mean, the people need to decide whether Donald Trump is going to be the next president, not partisan Democrats. And this 14th Amendment, Section 3, was for the Confederates in the Civil War, not for Donald Trump. Let's remember, on January 6th, he told for people to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard. He asked for National Guard. They didn't give him the approval there. And then he went on Twitter and said for people to leave in peace. That's not an insurrectionist. He's never been charged with insurrection, never convicted of insurrection. All of it, Anita, is outrageous. They're deathly afraid of facing Donald Trump. And all this is to try to prevent Donald Trump from being on the ballot. That is the candidate they fear the most, obviously.
Well, David, you know, even Democratic Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, said he thought it was a bad idea and that it was best for voters to defeat President Trump at the ballot box. What do you think?
Well, I like what the California Secretary of State said. You just played her speaking about it. Rule of law needs to control in all of these issues. The fact of the matter is your other guests may not like it, but the Constitution is very clear that someone who engages in insurrection is invalid to run for higher office. And that's what the 14th Amendment of our Constitution says. And at the base of this is Donald Trump's actions on January 6th. And it's ironic because the ultimate election interference is what Donald Trump did on January 6th, encouraging a boisterous crowd to attack the Capitol in order to interfere with the rule of law process for selecting our president. And so now we do have a conflict in laws. We have the 14th Amendment, but we also have the right of a person to be in the primary, to be on the ballot. And so it needs to be resolved by the courts. And that's where it is headed. And I think everybody agrees it's probably headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court needs to make a decision that will likely be a decision that guides states across the country on how to deal with that issue. But all of this is caused by Donald Trump and by Donald Trump's actions. And the ultimate issue is, can someone who tried to overthrow our government, who didn't uphold the Constitution, be entrusted with ensuring that everybody abides by the Constitution if he becomes president? And that's what everybody is struggling with.
Filibustering,
he hasn't been charged or convicted with insurrection. So let's just keep that in mind.
But he's been charged with interfering in our election. That's what the federal indictment is in D.C. That's what it's about.
But that's a separate issue from him being taken off the ballot. But let me move on.
Yeah, but the 14th Amendment doesn't require that he be charged. There's nothing in the 14th Amendment that says he has to be charged.
Well,
it says if he engaged in insurrection.
I think that's part of the... Go ahead. I think that's part of the legal debate here.
That's what I'm saying. And that's why it needs to go to the courts, and rule of law needs to decide, not a partisan person like your guest.
Anita, if he committed insurrection, he would have been charged by Jack Smith. Jack Smith threw everything at him, but he didn't throw this charge at him because it's ridiculous. Again,
you're not a lawyer. You don't understand how this works. But the 14th Amendment doesn't require. The 14th Amendment does not require that he be indicted, and he was indicted in federal court by Jack Smith on other election interference crimes.
Anita, yeah, but not that particular insurrection charge. But let me move on.
I know, but the 14th Amendment doesn't require there to be an indictment. Please read it, and I encourage your viewers to read it.
Let's see what the Supreme Court has to say about it. But of course, this issue has been sucking up all the oxygen on the campaign trail. Vivek Ramaswamy suggested that no candidate should appear on the ballots where Trump's name has been removed. But let's listen to what the others had to say.
The idea that one bureaucrat in an executive position can simply unilaterally disqualify someone from office, that turns on its head every notion of constitutional due process that this country's always abided by for over 200 years. It opens up Pandora's box.
This should be decided by the voters of the United States. It should not be decided by courts.
You have individuals who are deciding who the American people should and shouldn't vote on. I will defeat Donald Trump fair and square. I don't need him thrown off the ballot. But if we open this door, you can't close it. And the Supreme Court needs to respond quickly before any more states do this.
Okay, so all the candidates seem to agree there. Nikki Haley, in particular, while she was on the campaign trail, she hit a bump in the road when she failed to identify slavery as the cause of the Civil War. The other candidates pounced on her. One of them said she's not ready for prime time. But she also dodged a question about whether she would be willing to consider being Trump's running mate, should he get the nomination. She said she wasn't playing for second, but aren't they all playing for second at this point? David, to you first.
Well, this was an unfortunate situation for Nikki Haley. She didn't handle it well. If you watch her response, it seems like she knew that she was supposed to answer slavery, but she was worried that some in the Republican Party might not like that answer. And so she was really pandering by not mentioning slavery. It reminds me of what Senator McCain did in 2000 when he was running for the presidential nomination against Bush. And although he felt that the Confederate flag should not be flying over the state capitol in South Carolina, he declined to say that. And that really hurt him. And later he regretted that. And I think Nikki Haley will regret this. It may not hurt her in the Republican primary, but it's definitely going to hurt her in the general election if she gets the nomination. But the fact of the matter is she's very far away from getting the nomination. Polling shows Donald Trump is very far ahead of her. And I would note that she and the other candidates who are so far behind Trump still are too scared to take on Trump and to attack Trump. And that's probably what's hurting them.
Let me
Gotta
just
get
jump
Jeff in here real quick. I got 15 seconds for you, Jeff.
Filibustering. Nikki Haley's never going to get the VP nod. Nikki Haley is a neocon. Her campaign is going nowhere. Donald Trump is 50 points ahead. It's really an issue that is a diversion from what's going on. Trump is steamrolling these other candidates. The Democrats and the neocons are trying to stop him. He's not going to be stopped. He is going to be our next president again. And all of this is really just showing how desperate people are to stop the agenda of Make America Great Again. That's what this is all about. Not just Donald Trump. It's the agenda they're afraid of. They're not going to succeed. He's going to be elected again. Nikki Haley's going nowhere. DeSantis is going nowhere. None of these other candidates are going to come close. Trump is 50, 60 points ahead, Anita. He's leading Biden. He is going to be elected. They're not going to be able to stop him.
Well, we have our first political contest about 3 weeks from now, the Iowa caucuses. Next week will be a big week. President Trump's legal team expected to file the appeal on Tuesday. We're hoping for a swift decision from the Supreme Court. So lots of things ahead. Gentlemen, thank you for the very spirited debate. I appreciate that. Jeff Crouere and David Tafuri.